Hey guys, it's DC and welcome to the Soap Sanctuary where all soap lovers are welcome, guys. This is my character analysis on Todd Manning of One Life to Live. Now, coming in to town as Victor Lord's son, it wasn't always clear if he had a chip on his shoulder. And also, Todd, well, to the viewers, it wasn't clear that Todd was even Victor's son, right? So back then with soaps, a lot of times what they would do is they would bring in these new characters and they would figure out where they wanted them to go on canvas as the story was written along, right? So they would probably bring them on screen, say, I think we got a role for here. I think we have something can develop. But before we make it clear what this role is, we're gonna have you go in, see how you are interacting with the rest of the cast, see what the chemistry is actually looking like on screen, seeing how people are actually, responding to it based on the stuff they hear from Soap Opera Digest, ABC Digest, Soaps in Depths, all that stuff, right? They were gauging off of that. And that's what the writers were initially doing with Todd. His last name was Manning, but that was actually a mistake by the writers. That wasn't intentionally done. But when they saw that, they said, hey, we also know that Vicky's best friend, Irene Manning's the last name, we can make a connection here, right? And we can make him Victor's son. We think there's some potential here. And that's what they used to do a lot back in the day. They used to write things out as they developed it. Now, the problem is we see now with current modern day soaps is that they have everything planned out, which is not a bad thing. But the problem is that when they want to realize, whoa, this is not actually a good direction now that we're actually seeing it playing out on screen and we're seeing how the audience is reacting to it. So then when they try to switch it, it's like, we just noticed you did that. You know what I mean? So what are you trying to do? Like Victor and YNR was not meant to be a long-term character. They kind of just wanted to see where he was going to go. He was actually meant to be an abusive spouse, but they quickly took that off when they saw the audience was actually pretty receptive to him. Like, we want this character to have longevity down the line. Now, Todd's dynamic was never whitewashed on One Life to Live, right? Like how it is on Sunny and GH. Yeah, I'm looking at you GH fans. Yep. Now, it was never a mystery as to who Todd's character was, similar to Roger Thorpe. And the thing is that Roger Howard never wanted Todd to ever have to be redeemed. He wanted us to see how Todd was working through what he did, right? The reminders of what he did to Mara the Rape, which was the biggest storyline that really catapulted Todd's character, right? And the thing is that for us, that's real life. How many of us are still dealing with some decisions we made in the past? Maybe not as gruesome as that, but we're still walking and dealing with it and processing it in real life. I feel like now soaps are whitewashing over people's history. But if anything, in true real life fashion, why can't we see from time to time how the person is working through that, right? And Todd was one of those few characters where they did that in a soap, where it wasn't like he had to be all the way inherently evil, or we had to completely redeem him or put some brain to him in order to whitewash his whole history, right? Now, here's the thing. The women in Todd's life I would always say, were his redeeming quality, right? So I always look at it symbolically of what they represented. And I said this on a past video before, that Star, Blair, and Vicky all had a thing they represented in Todd's life to me. To me, Star, she represented his innocence or his lack thereof, right? As a child, Star saw Todd as her father, right? Her rescuer, the man that she felt safe with, right? She wasn't, I don't believe she was as privy to Todd's gruesome history until later on, especially when Cole came in the picture and she found out all the stuff that had happened with, Todd and Marty. She kind of was aware a little bit more at that point, but she got more in the depth of what actually took place and happened. Now, the thing is with Star, especially during her younger years, she didn't see beyond Todd's nature like the way Vicky did. So what Vicky was like, I see beyond who Todd is and to who he could be, right? Whereas Star didn't see that. Star didn't see beyond his nature. She just only saw one part of his nature at that time, especially when she was younger. So she only knew her as the man was her father, which makes sense. He was a child. You're not gonna obviously make them privy to everything under the sun, but she only saw one part of his nature. Now, Blair, moving on to Blair. Blair represented Todd's heart. That's what she always represented, his heart. The part of Todd that could actually be able to love another woman, right? Blair was a woman who accepted Todd despite his flaws and his history. She knew the stuff that happened with him and Marty. She knew what kind of a man he was, right? The same man that also sold her son on the black market when he thought it wasn't his son. Yeah, that same man. But to be honest, let's be honest here. A lot of men and women in today's society are like Blair, where they know the heinous things that a person has done, right? But they look at how that person resonates more with their heart, right? I remember as a kid feeling shocked that women were still dating and wanting Chris Brown after the whole Rihanna thing. And these are women I knew who were very pro-women, against abuse, et cetera, blah, 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 right? But the thing about it is, like, they were still like, oh, Chris Brown's fine. Now to this day, the same women like, oh, Chris Brown's fine. I would love to be with a man like that. It's a very interesting dynamic, I would say, right? Now, it brings a question, as we're looking at even with Todd and Blair, does time heal all, in a sense? Or does it simply allow us to tell a different story about the facts that we know? Think about that for a second. Now let's look at Vicky. Vicky, to me, always represented Todd's conscience, right? The part of him that wrestled between the parts of him that were both good and bad.
Himself. He thinks he's God.
Do you believe in God?
Do you think I should?
Yes. And I think you should pray very, very hard, because if that man dies, there is no torment that you have suffered that will even begin to compare to what you will feel.
Are you putting a curse on me?
Do it for me.
Well, why should I do it for you?
So like I said before, Vicky knew Todd's nature, but believed he had the chance to redeem himself if he truly wanted to. So with Vicky, redemption was always on the table for Todd. But Todd might take a bite here and there, but he wouldn't eat the whole plate, right? In a sense. That's how it was, right? But I think also, maybe that's also because with Vicky and her journey with DID, this dissociative identity disorder, and her alternate personalities, she wrestled in a sense too. She had an inner wrestling within herself, right? An inner conflict within herself, where she wrestled between the parts of her that she believed that she was a good woman at her core, with the other part of that, hey, like, there's a part of me that killed my father, right? Or so she believed for all those years, right? Up until Victor Lord came back from the dead, right? In a sense. So this notion allowed Vicky to give herself grace. But this is why Vicky knew that she was very mindful most, and she had a part of her nature that resembled the self-serving nature which Dorian had. Because you look at all Vicky's alters, which one most probably resembled the characteristics of Dorian? Nikki Smith, right? In a sense, if we had to go by comparison. Now, we all know, at least metaphysically I know, is that the relationships you have with people in your life are always representing back to you something that's already going on within you. So Nikki Smith was pretentious, bougie, self-serving, high maintenance, all the things that pretty much Dorian was. But Vicky Lord was not that woman. Or maybe she was deep down, because the altars only just represented other parts of you that maybe were suppressed. So the thing is that with Vicky, since she had suffered at the hands of a man who she thought was meant to protect her, this made her survive and go into survival mode, right? And that was a part of her that understood Todd and where he was coming from in certain ways, with certain things. Not with the Marty thing, but with other ways, right? Now, I want to add Marty to this list, because I've always talked about how Star, Blair, and Vicky, what they represented Todd. But what about Marty? You know, in a way, I would, if I had to choose symbolically what Marty represented Todd, I would say she represented his transgressions, right? His reminder of what he's capable of, right?
This is amazing. I continue to treat you like a human being, and you continue to act like yourself.
At least I'm honest.
Honest? You're not honest, you're twisted. I do understand how you and Blair ended up together.
Well,
You're two of a kind.
When Marty returned to Llanview in the late 2000s, she became a walking reminder to Todd about who he was and what he did, right? In a sense. And funny enough, all four of these women are blondes. But another thing I want to bring up here is Margaret Cochran, which her rape of Todd was symbolic. I don't know if any of you guys caught that, but to me it was very symbolic and very intentionally done by the writers. Because you look at it this way. Todd had raped a woman named Margaret. Marty Saber, but Margaret, right? And is now being raped by a woman of the same name years later. I think it was 0506, right? And Sam was a result of that. Now, unfortunately, because Todd at this time was technically Victor Lord Jr., this kind of became a moot point. But because the storyline was meant for Todd, I'm going to accept it as such. I don't want to disregard that, because I know the writers wrote that with the intention this is meant for Todd. This is why I don't like retcons, because it feels like such a slap in the face to like all things that happened during that time. I would have preferred that Todd was still like, I would have accepted the fact that maybe Todd did have that face and he got his original face back and this guy came. Like, I would have said something more convoluted to keep Sam, his son, to keep this history intact, right? Even when the time we saw Todd try to fall in love with Marty, which I'm going to get to that in just a moment. Now, if Roger Howard's Todd had stayed on, would he have stayed as gruesome as Trevor St. John's Todd? I do wonder that. Because Roger Howard's Todd, while he was balls to the walls, his Todd had more vulnerability shown to him, whereas Trevor St. John's Todd was more stoic. And I mentioned that also in my Days of Our Lives video of Gabby's betrayal when I'm going through the recast, right? Todd's rape of Marty literally paved the way for years and years of storyline as a result of the aftermath. With soaps, we don't have to always reinvent the wheel and try to come up with new storylines. You have decades and years of storylines that you can just connect it to. And you don't have to retcon history, but you can find ways to make other connections. Like, so with Star and Cole, Todd, or Victor Lord Jr., but Todd, well, he had Todd memories, but his issue was the fact that first it was an accusation that Cole might have raped Star in the beginning, right? And so Todd was very angry. One, because it's his daughter, but I think also now it's like, well, this is Marty Sabrick's son. You're getting a look in the mirror now at this point, right? So we see this play out with Star and Cole, and Todd sees this monster in Cole because the monster he knew he was to his mother, right? Classic soapiness, right? Now, there was a point in time, and I was gonna get to this point, where Todd and Marty almost fell in love when she lost her memory. And as sadistic as it was, I do believe that Todd wanted to fall in love with Marty and get her to fall in love with him to redeem the history that he had with her. It's similar to the Freudian elements of psychology where people would marry people similar to their parents to either heal past dynamics or to mirror them for a level of safety. This is why sometimes some people are getting like, oh, you remind me of my mother, you remind me of my father, and they smile because their mother and the father may represent safety for them. But then some people, where their parents didn't represent that, and they were just so caught up in that dynamic, they still might date somebody like that, thinking that they're not. But that also feels safe to them because it's what they know. That's the only safety you know, even though it feels chaotic, even though that makes sense, you know? So Todd could never really escape Marty in a sense, right? He could never escape his transgressions and what he did to her. One Life to Live always held a mirror to Todd's face. That's right, General Hospital, I'm looking at you, okay? Sonny could use the same. They're finally starting to hold the mirror to Sonny's face because Sonny's a man who kills people for a living. That is not a hero of the show, guys. That is not a hero. Now, Todd was in many ways the second coming of Victor Lord, right? Not junior, but senior. Maybe that's why I think he had such an endearment for him so much, because he reminded her of their father. And in many ways, he did a lot of the same things Victor Lord did, right? He was overbearing, right, as a father. He committed a sexual crime. He was very ambitious, very nefarious, right? The original Victor Lord was not written in that way, obviously, during Deception, One Life to Live, which is why that came as a shock years later when Vicky realized that she was raped by her father, right? Another thing I look at is that Todd literally named his newspaper, right, in a way, modeling of the fact that he was Victor Lord's son. It was called The Sun, right, because he was the son of Victor Lord, right? In a lot of ways, he did resemble who the original Victor Lord was. And I don't know if anybody else has seen that comparisons. Now, I didn't go all the way in a deep dive of all of Todd's history because this video will go on forever and ever, amen. But let me know what you guys think, guys, about some of these comparisons that you see with some of the things I made with Todd and his history and some of the character analysis with other characters from Life to Live. And let me know what some of your own thoughts are in the comments below. And if you're loving the content that I'm posting here on this channel, because I don't say this enough, please like, share, comment, and subscribe. And I will see you guys on the next video. I also want to say there is a podcast, a soap audio podcast called Evergreen that just came out. Oh my God, it's actually pretty good. It's very similar to Forever and a Day, Tomorrow's a New Day, Old Cove. Evergreen is actually really, really good. I like it. I like it. I like it a lot. I'm going to try to post the links in the description below for you guys to check it out. But anyways, guys, I will see you guys in the next Soap Sanctuary. I am out. See ya.
This has been Soap Sanctuary.